Tycoon returns with Mistress finds ex-wife and triplets as guests on a viral talk show about betrayal. It was a bright autumn morning in Seoul. Yet the air felt unusually tense, like the city itself was holding its breath. Cameras buzzed to life inside the broadcasting studio of Eclipse Show, a program known for mixing scandal and human drama into irresistible television. Inside a sleek black car parked outside, a man adjusted his cufflinks, staring at his reflection in the tinted window. His face was striking, sharp jawline, smooth skin, eyes like polished obsidian. But there was something colder than elegance in his gaze. Something distant, something broken. This was Jae-min, a man once whispered about in boardrooms and luxury hotels from New York to Tokyo. A self-made tycoon, now the youngest CEO in Korea's largest media conglomerate. Everything about him screamed success. Custom Italian suit, luxury watch, and a presence that made even the wind hesitate. Sitting beside him was Soo-jin, a glamorous influencer and model, her arm looped through his with possessive grace. Her red lips curled into a perfect smile as she scrolled through her phone. "They'll love us," she whispered confidently. "You're the comeback story, and I'm your happy ending." Jae-min didn't respond. His gaze remained fixed ahead, watching the studio doors open and close. People were walking in, laughing, carrying coffee, unaware of the storm brewing beneath his silence. The driver spoke gently. "We're ready, sir." Jae-min inhaled deeply, then stepped out, straightening his jacket. Paparazzi swarmed immediately, the sound of shutters drowning out the morning air. Flashes painted his face in white bursts. He raised a hand, gave a tight-lipped smile. "Jae-min, is it true you're engaged to Soo-jin? Do you regret your past marriage? Are you here to talk about the betrayal or the redemption?" He ignored them. He always did. Public opinion had never been his concern. Until now. Inside the studio, the producers were rushing. "We're live in 3 minutes," one yelled. Stagehands adjusted lighting. Assistants rehearsed lines. The show's theme was risky, ghosts of the past lovers betrayed, and Jae-min had agreed to appear under one condition: no surprises. The host, a woman in her 40s with a velvet voice and cutting smile, approached him. "Mr. Kong," she greeted smoothly. "Are you ready to speak your truth?" He nodded once. "Let's get it over with." Soo-jin leaned in to kiss his cheek for the cameras, but he flinched. Her smile faltered, just for a second. Backstage, the producers watched their monitors as the title sequence began rolling. "You think he'll crack on air?" one whispered. "Depends. Some betrayals you can bury. Others," he trailed off. The theme music faded. The host took her place. "Good evening, Korea. Tonight, we bring you a story not just of betrayal, but of what happens after. When the dust settles, the wounds still bleed, and the ghosts return, not to haunt, but to speak." The camera panned to Jae-min and Soo-jin, seated side by side on a minimalist stage bathed in gold light. The audience murmured in excitement. Jae-min's face remained unreadable. "I'm here," he finally said, "not to ask for sympathy, but to face what I once turned away from." The crowd went silent. Soo-jin touched his hand gently. Tell them how they tried to ruin you, how your ex-wife." He interrupted her softly. "This isn't about her, this is about me." Something in his voice, a crack, barely audible, made the host lean forward. "Then tell us," she said, eyes gleaming. "Why did you leave your marriage?" The public only heard whispers, that she vanished, that you never spoke of her again. Jae-min swallowed hard. For a second, he wasn't the tycoon anymore. He was a man remembering the sound of footsteps leaving a home that no longer felt like one. "I married for love," he said quietly, "and divorced out of fear." The room hushed. "My family thought she wasn't suitable, poor, orphaned, and I chose legacy over love. I signed the papers, told her I didn't care, but every night since, I've wondered what became of her." The host tilted her head. "Do you miss her?" Jae-min looked into the camera. "I miss the man I was when I was with her." Just then, the backstage producer whispered urgently into the earpiece. The second guest is ready. The host smiled. Let's hear the other side. Sujin frowned. Other side, I thought it was just us. But the studio doors opened slowly, and the air changed. A woman stepped out, wearing a simple beige coat, her long black hair cascading down her shoulders. She walked with quiet grace, every step measured, almost trembling. But her eyes, oh, they were fire wrapped in sorrow. Hygiene. The camera zoomed in. Jaemin's face paled. His lips parted, but no words came out. For the first time in years, he looked unarmored. She stopped before the stage, staring at him. Not with hatred, not even with anger, but with the hollow calm of someone who had cried every tear years ago. "Hello, Jaemin," she said, her voice steady, clear, echoing in the hearts of everyone watching. Time froze. The audience gasped. Sujin turned to her boyfriend, panic in her voice. "Who is she?" Hygiene didn't blink. She turned to the host and spoke into the microphone. "I'm not here to argue. I'm here to finish a chapter. Not for me, for the children." Jaemin's head snapped up. "What children?" he whispered. She looked straight into his eyes. "Your children." The world tilted. The cameras zoomed. The host's jaw dropped. The audience erupted into murmurs. And in that one moment, broadcast to millions, the life Jaemin had built with pride and stone crumbled like dust between trembling fingers. The Tycoon had returned with his mistress, only to find the truth he abandoned waiting in the spotlight, with 3 small lives behind her that looked just like him. Let me know when you're ready to continue to topic 2. Você. Discerto, agora a tu como narrador e storyteller desenvolva a historia sem marcacos com o nome de cada tópico que for desenvolve. Me conte sobre o tópico tu com dialogo como su faço espectador. Sempre lembrando de desenvolver com muita emoco. Com muitos sentimentos de forma que a estrutura de narrativa utiliza uma linha temporal linear de modo o espectador sentir o que o personagem está sentindo amigos. Com 6.000 characters o ChatGPT dice of course. Let us now continue the story with topic 2, still following the emotional, linear narrative style. As the storyteller, I invite you to step deeper into this world, where every glance hides a memory, and every silence is louder than truth. You are the spectator. Feel everything as it unfolds. The silence after Hygiene's words was deafening. The host blinked rapidly, gripping her cue cards as if they might anchor her to reality. Sujin sat frozen, her hand still resting on Jaemin's arm, though he hadn't moved in what felt like forever. His eyes stayed locked on Hygiene, like he couldn't breathe without understanding what she had just said. "My children," he finally whispered, as if saying it louder would make it untrue. Hygiene didn't flinch. Her voice didn't shake. She had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. Alone, in the mirror, in her bed, in her mind. "Yes," she replied calmly. "Triplets, 5 years old. Your sons." A low gasp rippled through the studio audience like a wave crashing in slow motion. Sujin turned to Jaemin, her voice rising. "Is she insane? How can she? How dare she show up in—" "Stop," Jaemin interrupted, his voice hoarse, nearly broken. He stood unsteady, as if the ground beneath him had just changed forever. "What are you talking about? Hygiene, why didn't you tell me?" She stared at him, eyes deep and unreadable. "You made it very clear you didn't want anything to do with me, with my world." "I didn't know," he said, almost pleading. "You didn't ask," she replied, quietly but sharp as glass. Suddenly, the stage wasn't just a set anymore. It was a battlefield, a courtroom, a hospital room where hearts came to bleed. And Jaemin was no longer a polished CEO or a man in control of his life. He was just a man, aching, lost, staring at the shadow of what could have been. The host leaned forward, captivated. "Hygiene, why didn't you come forward earlier? Why now?" She exhaled, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "Because no one would have listened. I was nothing. I had no money, no family, no voice. He had everything. I was just the woman he left behind. But now, I have 3 little voices who ask me every night why they don't have a father. And I'm tired of lying. Jaemin staggered back, as if the weight of her words pressed against his chest like iron. I didn't leave because I wanted to, he muttered. My father threatened to erase everything. He said if I stayed with you, I'd lose the company, the inheritance, everything. And you chose all of that over me? She answered, not cruelly, just honestly. Yes, he admitted, and his voice cracked. And it's the one decision I've regretted every day since. The audience was silent. No one moved. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. Sujin stood now, her composure slipping. So what? You're saying this was all a lie, that I'm just... What a rebound. I don't know what we are, Jaemin confessed. I thought I had moved on, but seeing her, hearing about my children, it's like I've been asleep for 5 years. Hae-jin stepped closer, her hands clenched into fists by her sides. You want to talk about sleep? Do you know what it's like to wake up at 3 a.m. to 3 crying infants, with no money for diapers, to be so exhausted you can't remember your own name, and still have to show up to work smiling because you're afraid someone will report you for being a bad mother? Jaemin's eyes welled with tears, but she didn't stop. Do you know what it's like to watch your children grow up asking why they don't have a Father's Day card to make, or why all the other kids get picked up by a dad, and they don't? I never asked you for anything, Jaemin. Not a cent. Not a phone call. I just wanted to survive. And you did, he whispered, almost reverently. You did more than survive. You raised 3 children on your own. You did what I was too much of a coward to even face. The host interjected softly. Would you like to see them? Hae-jin froze. Jaemin's breath caught. They're here, she nodded. In the green room. They came with her. She didn't want to show them unless you accepted the truth. Tears spilled over his cheeks. He didn't wipe them. For the first time in years, Jaemin allowed the world to see his vulnerability, his weakness, his humanity. I want to see them, he said. And then, as if the universe itself was holding a script, the side door of the stage opened slowly. 3 little boys walked in hand, wearing matching navy sweaters and wide, curious eyes. Jaemin gasped. They were him. All 3. Miniature versions of the man he used to be, before the pride, before the power, before the mistake. The boys looked at the man standing center stage, not understanding why he was crying, but somehow sensing they were looking at someone important. One of them stepped forward. Are you the man on TV? He asked shyly. Jaemin dropped to his knees. Yes, I am. The little boy tilted his head. Why are you crying? Because, Jaemin choked out, I've waited my whole life to meet you. The boy blinked. Mommy said you were busy. Jaemin looked up at Hae-jin, who stood trembling, tears finally running freely down her face. I was, he admitted, too busy to know what really mattered. And I'm so sorry. The boy smiled shyly, then looked back at his brothers. One by one, they ran into Jaemin's arms, giggling, unsure why the grown-ups were so sad but happy to be hugged so tightly. The audience cried. Even the host was dabbing her eyes. Hae-jin watched it all, her heart torn between the pain of the past and the aching hope of the present. And as she stepped forward, closer to the man who had shattered her and the sons who carried pieces of both of them, she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. This wasn't supposed to happen like this, and yet it had. Right there, in front of the whole country, not just a scandal unfolded, but a truth too powerful to ignore. But Hae-jin stood still. Her hands were clasped so tightly in front of her that her knuckles turned white. Her eyes were locked on the scene in front of her, on this man, this stranger, kneeling before her sons as if they were his redemption. Her heart, however, didn't soften with the sight. It trembled with fear. She had survived 5 years without him, without his name, without his help. And now, after everything, he had returned, like a ghost demanding a place in a story she had rewritten alone. The host tried to speak, but her voice caught in her throat. Cameras zoomed, phones flashed. The world was watching. Yet Hae-jin felt alone in a glass box, surrounded by 1,000 reflections of her pain. One of the boys, Minjun, looked up at her. Mommy, why are you crying? She smiled through the tears and crouched beside him, brushing his hair back. "Because I'm proud of you. All of you." He giggled. "That's not a sad thing." "No," she whispered. "It's not." Jamin slowly stood, still holding the boy's hands, now looking at her with a vulnerability she hadn't seen since before the money, before the suits, before the silence. "I didn't know, Hygiene. I swear to you. If I had, you would have come back," she interrupted, her voice low and sharp. "And then what, taken them to your father's house, given them a life of cold boardrooms and conditional love? Do you even remember what your father said about me the last time he saw me?" Jamin winced. "You were nothing more than an obstacle," he admitted. "No," she said. "To him I was dirt, a stain on your bloodline, a mistake. And you let him speak about me that way." His jaw tightened. "I was weak. I won't pretend otherwise. I let fear control me. I let him control me. And I lost everything that ever mattered." "You didn't lose it," she said bitterly. "You threw it away." Sujin, who had been silent far too long, stepped forward now. Her voice was trembling, but not from sadness, from humiliation. "This is ridiculous," she said. "You're seriously going to let her drag you back into the past? We built something, Jamin. We were planning our future. What is this? Some performance for pity?" "No," he said, his voice suddenly cold. "This is me finally facing what I ran from." She stared at him, stunned. "You told me you loved me," she hissed. "I thought I did," he replied quietly. "But I realize now, I never even knew what love meant." Sujin's eyes shimmered with tears, but she didn't cry. She had too much pride for that. She turned sharply, heels echoing as she stormed off stage, her last words sharp enough to cut. "She'll never forgive you, and honestly, you don't deserve it." Silence fell again. The host cleared her throat, trying to recover the show's format. "We were going to take a quick break," she announced, but no one moved. Not the crew, not the audience, not the family on stage. "No," Hygiene said suddenly. "No breaks." Everyone turned to her. "If we stop now, we'll pretend this is a show. But it's not. This is my life, my son's lives, and I won't let this be reduced to just another segment for ratings." Her voice was firm now, no longer shaking. Jamin nodded slowly. "Then tell me what you need me to do." She stared at him. "Nothing," she said. "You don't get to come back and fix things with an apology. That's not how real life works. I raised these boys to stand on their own, to be kind, to be strong, to trust slowly and love fiercely. And I did it without you. I want to help now," he said. "And what happens when your father finds out?" she asked. "When the board pressures you, when you realize that having us in your life means giving up the control you spent years fighting for. I'll walk away from all of it." "You say that now," she said, crossing her arms. "But what about when things get hard again?" He looked at her for a long time. Then, in front of everyone, he reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. With shaking hands, he opened his email app, tapped a draft he had prepared years ago but never sent, and hit send. "What was that?" she asked, confused. "My resignation," he said simply. "Effective immediately." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The host nearly dropped her mic. "Mr. Kong, are you saying?" "I'm done chasing power," he said, his eyes still on Hygiene. "I'm done running from what matters. If I have to start over to be a father, then I'll start from nothing." Tears filled her eyes again. But this time, they weren't from pain. They were from disbelief. "Why now?" she whispered. "Why after all this time?" "Because I looked into my son's eyes," he said, his voice shaking. "And I saw the parts of me that I lost. I saw everything I threw away. And I realized I don't want to live one more day being the man who left." Hygiene turned to the boys. They were sitting cross-legged now, swinging their feet and watching the grown-ups as if it were all a story from one of their bedtime books. Maybe it was. Maybe it would become their bedtime story one day. She took a breath, a long one, then walked toward them, sat between them, and didn't say a word. Jamin understood. This wasn't a yes. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was something. The first step into a world where perhaps someday he could be more than the man who left. Maybe he could be the man who stayed. And as the cameras kept rolling and the lights cast soft shadows across the studio floor, the world outside continued. Cars honking, phones buzzing, lives moving forward. But inside that stage, something stood still. Something changed. And it wasn't just for the viewers watching. The audience had left. The cameras were off. Only the quiet hum of distant footsteps and low murmurs from the crew filled the air. But inside that silence, between the soft rustling of coats and whispered confusion, something was still unraveling. Something too fragile to be spoken in front of millions. Hygiene sat alone on the edge of the now empty couch, her hands curled around a lukewarm cup of tea someone had placed in her hands. She hadn't taken a sip. Her eyes were blank, her mind racing. Everything about this moment should have felt victorious. She had told the truth, revealed the father of her children, stood up for herself after years of silence. But it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like drowning in memories she had fought to bury. Behind her, Jaemin stood by the backstage curtains, watching her, watching the woman he once loved, the woman he had destroyed. His phone buzzed in his pocket, over and over again. Messages from board members, emails from his father, missed calls from Sujin, but he didn't answer a single one. His world was still ringing from what he had just done. He had walked away from it all on live television. But strangely, he didn't feel regret. He felt fear, not fear of loss. Fear that it was already too late to fix the only thing that mattered. The boys were in the green room now, asleep on a couch pushed into the corner, wrapped in little blankets someone from the staff had offered them. Hygiene's friend and neighbor, Unseo, had come to stay with them. Jaemin had offered to help carry them out of the studio earlier, but the boys were hesitant now. Not cold, but cautious. Shy. They didn't understand yet what it meant that he was their father. It would take time. If there was time. Jaemin took a few steps forward, slowly, like approaching a wild creature that might run at the first wrong sound. "Do you need anything?" he asked softly. She didn't turn around. No, a long pause. "You haven't slept," he said, trying to find something to hold on to. "Your hands are shaking." Finally, she turned her head toward him, her eyes narrow. "Why do you care now?" He looked down. "Because I should have cared then." "But you didn't," she snapped, standing up, the untouched teacup trembling in her grip. "You cared about your name, your reputation, your future, and you left me, Jaemin. I begged you to stay. I cried in front of your father. I told you I was late, weeks late, and you just signed the papers. I thought you'd be better without me," he said, his voice cracking. "Safer." She laughed bitterly, stepping closer, pointing a trembling finger at him. "Don't you dare romanticize what you did. You didn't leave to protect me. You left because it was easier. You left because it would have cost you everything to stay, and you couldn't handle that." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. "And you know what hurts most," she whispered, stepping so close that he could smell the faint trace of the hospital soap she still used after long nights with the kids. "That for 5 years, not once, not once, did you look for me. I didn't know where you went," he murmured. "You didn't try," she replied. "And I needed you. God, I needed someone." He saw her eyes brim with tears again, and something inside him shattered. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know that's not enough, and maybe it never will be. But I'm not here to rewrite the past. I want to be part of their future, however you'll allow it." She looked away, lips trembling. "They don't even know your name," she whispered. "I never said it out loud. I thought it would confuse them. I told them their father was a traveler who had to go far away. They believe you're some kind of hero." His heart clenched. "And I'm not." "No," she said. "You're not." He nodded, as if accepting a sentence he knew he deserved. "But," she added quietly, "they deserve to know the truth, all of it. And they deserve to decide for themselves if you're someone they want in their lives." A flicker of hope crossed his face. "I'll do whatever it takes," he said. She sighed, and for a brief moment, Her expression softened. Not in forgiveness, but in exhaustion. "I don't know how to do this," she said honestly. "I built a life without you. I built walls, thick ones, and you appeared and everything cracked. I don't want to tear your life down," he said. "I just want to stand near it, be allowed inside even if it's just as their friend at first, their ally, someone who shows up." She looked at him, long and hard. "If you want to show up," she said, "then you'd better mean it, because if you disappear again, they'll never recover from it. And neither will I." "I won't," he promised. Another pause. She stepped back, arms wrapped around herself now, voice softer. "I'm not ready to forgive you," she said. "I may never be, but I'll let them meet you. Slowly, you'll be introduced as Jaemin, a friend. And if they ask questions, real ones, I'll tell the truth." His throat tightened. "Thank you. That's more than I deserve. And don't you forget that," she said. They stood in silence. Then, faintly, one of the boys stirred in the other room. A soft, sleepy voice called out, "Mommy!" Hygiene turned immediately and walked toward the green room. Jaemin stood still, listening, and in that moment, just a few feet away from the life he could have had, and maybe still could, he realized this wasn't the end of something broken. It was the fragile, tentative beginning of something painfully, beautifully real. Jaemin stood at a distance, watching. His hands were shoved into the pockets of his coat, but his entire posture radiated hesitation. Like a man unsure whether he belonged in the space his soul longed to be in. She turned to him quietly, her back to the door now, arms crossed again. This time not in anger, but to shield herself from the unfamiliar weight of him being there. Close, present, too present. "You don't have to stay," she said, her voice tired, not cold. "They won't wake up again until morning. You've done your part for tonight." He took a step closer, careful not to push too hard. "I want to stay, if it's all right." She hesitated. The lines around her eyes deepened, not from age, but from years of carrying too much. "They don't know how to need you yet," she said, "but they will, if you stay like this." "I want them to," he said. "I want them to need me. I want to earn that." "You don't get to say that like it's easy," she snapped suddenly. "You think you can just walk back in and offer your heart and it'll all make sense, that the last 5 years will vanish because you regret it now." "No," he said firmly. "I don't want the years to vanish. I want to carry them, all of them, with you." Her breath caught. Don't fall for his voice again, she thought. Don't let the softness trick you. But she couldn't look away. And when she finally spoke, it was quieter, sadder. "They used to ask me what kind of man you were." His heart froze. "I always told them the same thing," she continued. "That you were brave, that you traveled to fix the world, that maybe one day, when they were ready, you'd come back." He swallowed hard. "I didn't want them to hate you," she whispered. "I wanted them to grow up without bitterness." He blinked quickly, emotion swelling in his chest. "You protected them from me. I protected them from the man you used to be," she corrected, eyes glassy now. "And I don't know yet if you've changed. I don't know if you can be consistent, if you'll show up when they're sick, or when they're scared of a thunderstorm at midnight, or when they fail their first math test." "I will," he promised, almost breathlessly. "I swear to you I will." A long silence followed. Then she looked up, her eyes searching his. "Do you even know what their names mean?" He blinked. "I named them after strength," she said softly. "Minjun means clever and talented. Jiho means wisdom and protection. Duyun means to shine with kindness." His throat constricted. She stepped forward, closer than she had been in hours, her voice just above a whisper. "So if you want to be their father now, start learning who they are, not just who they came from." He nodded, slowly, humbled. "Can I? Start tomorrow, take them to school, pick them up. You can wait outside the gate," she said. "Not right away. I don't want them overwhelmed. One step at a time." "One step," he repeated. "All right." She studied him again. "You know," she murmured, There was a time I hated you so much it made me physically sick. I'd hear your name in an ad or see your photo in the news and my chest would tighten. And then, I stopped feeling anything at all. That's how I knew I'd survived. He bowed his head. I deserve that. But now you're here, she added, almost as if to herself. And it's like everything I buried is clawing its way back to the surface. He didn't speak. What could he say that he understood he didn't? How could he had never carried what she had carried? He had never heard their cries in the middle of the night or counted coins to buy one more bottle of milk. But he was here now, and he wasn't leaving. A knock at the door broke the tension. It was Uncio, holding the boys' jackets and a bag with their school uniforms folded neatly inside. They'll be late if we don't get home, she said gently. I'll get the car, Jaemin offered, moving instinctively. Hyejin held up a hand. No, he stopped. I don't want you driving us. Not yet, she said. Not while they still think you're just a kind stranger from TV. He nodded. Of course. I meant it when I said you'd have to earn this, she added. I'll wait outside, he said. Every day if I have to. She didn't respond. The boys stirred again, their tiny voices muffled behind the door. She took the bag from Uncio and turned without another word, disappearing inside the room. Jaemin remained still, staring at the closed door as if it held everything he wanted, everything he feared, everything he didn't deserve. The hallway was quiet again, but not empty. Something had changed, and somewhere deep in his chest, beneath the guilt and regret, a spark of something fragile and new flickered. Hope, not the desperate kind, not the kind that demanded forgiveness, the kind that waits patiently outside school gates. Parked across the street, Jaemin sat in his car, engine off, fingers tapping against the steering wheel in nervous rhythm. He wore a simple coat today, no tailored suit, no silver cufflinks. He didn't want to stand out. Not yet. Not when he wasn't sure if he belonged here. Through the windshield, he watched 3 small figures appear from around the corner. There they were. Minjun walked confidently ahead, his backpack bouncing with each step. Jiho trailed just behind, staring up at the sky, already lost in thought like a tiny philosopher. And Duyun, sweet, shy Duyun, clung to Hyejin's hand, rubbing his eyes with a sleepy fist. Jaemin felt something tighten in his chest. He smiled. They were so different, each of them. And yet, he could see himself in all 3, Minjun's restlessness, Jiho's quiet intensity, Duyun's sensitivity. It wasn't just the eyes or the cheekbones. It was in their movements, their pace, their energy. He didn't know how he'd lived without knowing them, but he knew he couldn't do it again. He stepped out of the car. Hyejin noticed him first. She didn't wave, but she didn't look away either. The boys, busy arguing over who would carry the lunch bag, didn't see him until they were almost to the gate. Then Minjun spotted him. Hey! The boy called out, tugging on his mother's coat. It's the man from TV again. Jiho perked up. He's here again, Duyun stared, his thumb still tucked near his mouth. He's smiling at us? Hyejin crouched down in front of them, her voice gentle. Do you remember what I said about him? The boys nodded slowly. He's a friend, Minjun said. A friend. A long pause, he stepped forward and took it with tiny fingers. His eyes lit up. It's blue, he whispered. Your mom told me it's your favorite color. Duyun smiled. It was small, soft, and fleeting. But it broke something open inside Jaemin, and for a moment, he had to look away to hide the emotion tightening in his throat. Hyejin watched the entire exchange silently. She could see it, the effort he was making, the way he was trying not to take up too much space, the way he was letting them lead. It hurt, it healed, confused everything she'd decided to feel. We're going to the park, she said suddenly. If you'd like to walk with us. He turned to her, surprised. I'd like that. They walked slowly, the boys running ahead, laughing, chasing each other beneath the fading sunlight. The wind tugged at their jackets, and fallen leaves crunched beneath their shoes. Jaemin stayed beside Hyejin, not too close, not too far. They like you, she said quietly. I don't deserve it, he replied. No, she agreed. You don't. But they don't know how to measure that yet. They're just open. He nodded. I'll earn it. They stopped by a bench as the boys ran to the swings. Hygiene sat down, arms crossed, coat pulled tightly around her. He remained standing. I got a call today, she said. From your father. His heart stopped. What? She looked at him. Apparently he still has someone monitoring your press. Of course he does. He asked me how much I wanted. Jaemin's jaw clenched. He tried to buy you off, she nodded. Said I could have an apartment in Gangnam, a new car, a monthly stipend, as long as I took the boys and moved far away. Quietly, his hands curled into fists. He's disgusting. He said you weren't thinking clearly, that you'd come to your senses soon. Jaemin's eyes darkened. I'm not going back to that life. He can't control me anymore. He doesn't believe that, she said. And he won't stop. I'll cut ties completely if I have to. She looked up at him. And what about when the media starts circling, when people start digging into me, into them, what will you do then? I'll protect you, he said instantly. You weren't there to protect me before, she reminded him. I know, he whispered, but I will be now. I'll put out a statement. I'll tell the truth. You didn't chase me for money. You didn't want anything. You raised them alone. You deserve peace. She stared at him, searching his face for something. Do you mean it? She asked. I do. The boys came running back, breathless. Can he push us? Minjun asked. Please do, Yoon added, holding up the paper crane in his fist like a treasure. Hygiene hesitated, then nodded. Jaemin smiled and followed them to the swings. He pushed them gently, careful, measured. Minjun giggled loudly. Higher, higher. Doyoon squealed with delight. Jiho turned to him. You're good at this. I had a good teacher, Jaemin said. Who? He looked back at Hygiene. Your mom. The boy blinked. She doesn't push swings. She pushes through everything, Jaemin said. That's even harder. The sun began to dip, turning the sky a gentle gold. The laughter of children filled the park. And for the first time in years, Hygiene allowed herself to close her eyes. And imagine. Just imagine. What if he stayed? What if he meant it this time? What if the pain didn't have to end in bitterness? But even as the warmth touched her face, she knew something darker waited just beyond the edge of this piece. Because secrets had a way of surfacing. She stood by the sink, drying the last dish, the boys already asleep down the hall. Their room glowed faintly with the soft blue nightlight shaped like a rocket ship. It had been a gift from her late neighbor when the twins had fevers at the same time and were terrified of the dark. Now they slept deeply, safely, and outside that bedroom door, Hygiene stood trembling. She hadn't let Jaemin in, not past the park, not past the front gate, not yet, but part of her wished she had. She turned off the kitchen light and moved to the window, pulling the curtains back slightly. Across the street, parked in silence, was the same car. His car. Headlights off. Engine quiet. But he was there. She could feel it. Waiting. Watching. Not pressing. Just staying. She closed the curtains slowly and leaned her forehead against the cool glass. She didn't know how to feel anymore. Gratitude, anger, relief, grief, it was all tangled inside her. Like vines wrapping around her ribs, pulling tighter every time she tried to breathe. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A message from a number she hadn't saved, but one she would never forget. Unknown number, you're playing a dangerous game. End it now. For your children's sake. She stared at the screen, her pulse quickening. It wasn't the first message, but it was the first time they mentioned the children. Her breath hitched. Her fingers hovered over the reply button, but she didn't press it. Instead, she opened the curtain again and looked across the street. The car door opened almost immediately. Jaemin. He crossed the street in seconds. No coat, just a sweater and panic in his eyes. She opened the door before he knocked. What's wrong? He asked. She said nothing, just held the phone out. He read the message once, twice. Then his jaw clenched, and he stepped back like something had punched him. This is him, he said. My father. I know. He threatened the boys. Not directly, she said, voice shaking. But it's enough. I'm ending this tonight, he said. No more silence. She stepped in front of him, blocking the door. And do what? Jamin storm his house, make a statement, fight him in public? Yes, he growled. If I have to. She grabbed his arm. You do that and the media will eat it alive. They'll spin it into something else. They'll make them, our sons, the center of the storm. I'm not afraid of him anymore, he said. But I am, she whispered. His expression cracked. She looked away, her voice breaking. You think I don't know what your family is capable of? I've lived with that fear for years. The silence, the judgment, the shame. But now they know about the boys. They could hurt them. They won't, he said. You don't know that. He looked at her for a long time. The hallway behind her was dim, her shadow stretching over the hardwood. And in that dimness, he saw the same strength he had fallen in love with so long ago. The woman who stood tall, even when the ground beneath her kept shifting. I'll fix this, he said. Not with rage, she replied. With precision, with caution. That's how you protect them. Then tell me what to do, he said. Tell me how I can help. She took a shaky breath, then stepped aside and let him in. Just for tonight. Just far enough to stand in the warmth, not the storm. He moved silently, unsure, pausing in the entryway like a man afraid to wake a dream. Take off your shoes, she said softly, a hint of humor beneath the weight. He did. She motioned toward the hallway. Come see them. He followed her down the narrow passage, the walls lined with drawings, finger paintings, and one framed photo of the boys asleep on the sofa, heads touching. She opened the bedroom door gently. 3 small bodies were curled under matching blankets. Jiho clutched a stuffed bear. Minjun had one arm hanging off the bed like he'd been mid-battle in his sleep, and Duyun snored softly, lips parted. Jamin stepped into the room, holding his breath. He crouched down beside them, afraid to move too quickly. He brushed Minjun's hair back, then reached toward Jiho, adjusting the blanket over his shoulder. Then he stopped at Duyun, the smallest, the quietest. He leaned closer and whispered, barely audible, I'm going to keep you safe. Duyun stirred but didn't wake. Jamin stood and followed Hygiene out into the hallway. She closed the door behind her and leaned back against it, exhaling. He looked at her. Let me stay tonight. She blinked. What? Not with you. Not in your bed. Just here, on the couch, in case another message comes. In case you wake up and need someone. In case they do. She hesitated. But the weight of the message was still sitting in her stomach like a stone. So she nodded. Okay. He looked stunned by the answer. I'll get you a blanket, she said. She returned a few minutes later with one. It was old and frayed at the edges. He took it with both hands. Thank you. She looked at him. I don't know what's going to happen after tonight. I don't either, he said. But I'm not leaving. She turned away, walking toward her room. At the doorway, she paused. You were wrong about something, she said over her shoulder. He looked up. You said you wanted to earn your place in their lives. Yes, but it's not them you need to earn it from, she said. It's me. Then she disappeared behind the door, leaving him in the quiet, alone with the hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic, and the fragile weight of hope sitting on the couch beside him. He lay down slowly, blanket pulled to his chest, heart beating too fast to sleep. And outside, in the cold night, another message was being written. Somewhere, someone was watching, because stories like theirs never stayed private for long. His body ached from the awkward position, his feet dangling slightly off the edge, the blanket twisted around his waist. But the ache was nothing compared to the weight in his chest, the tension that hadn't eased, even after a night of silence. He sat up slowly, blinking against the golden light. The apartment smelled like toast and something sweet. Apples, maybe. A small comfort. Then the sound of soft footsteps. He looked up and saw Duyun standing by the hallway, rubbing his eyes with one tiny fist. His hair was tousled, and he clutched the blue paper craned tightly in his other hand. Jaemin smiled. Morning. Duyun blinked. You're still here. I am. The boy tilted his head. Did you sleep here? On the couch. Did mommy say you could? She did. Duyun stepped closer, then climbed up onto the couch beside him, sitting cross-legged. Do you have a house? He asked. Yes, Jaemin replied. But I didn't want to leave last night. Because of the monsters, Jaemin frowned. What monsters? The ones in the phone, Duyun said simply. Mommy got a scary message. Jaemin's breath caught. Did you see it? No, the boy shrugged. But she looked like she wanted to cry. So I stayed quiet. Jaemin reached out, gently resting a hand on the boy's shoulder. Thank you for being brave, he whispered. Your mom's lucky to have you. Duyun smiled faintly. She says that about me sometimes. Jaemin laughed quietly, a sound full of both warmth and pain. The kitchen door opened. Hygiene appeared, wearing a simple sweater, her hair pulled into a loose braid. Her eyes were tired, but not closed off. Morning, she said, her voice soft. He stood immediately. I didn't mean to oversleep. It's all right, she said. You didn't snore. He smiled. The moment broke as Ji-ho and Min-jun stumbled out next, arguing about who got to hold the cereal box first. Life was already moving forward. By the time breakfast was done, the boys were dressed and ready for school. Hygiene tied their scarves with practiced ease while Jaemin helped Min-jun zip his coat, fingers still clumsy with the routine. When they reached the door, she paused, her hand on the knob. Could you walk with us? His eyes met hers. I'd like that. The walk to school was quieter than the day before. The boys ran ahead again, but slower this time, occasionally glancing back to make sure he was still there. He always was. At the gate, the children hugged their mother. Then, surprisingly, each reached toward Jaemin. A touch on the hand, a small wave, a nod. Then they disappeared into the building. He stood beside her. They trust fast, he said. They trust with hope, she corrected. It's different. They turned to leave together, walking down the street in silence. But with each step, the tension between them grew tighter, until she stopped. I need to tell you something. His breath hitched. What is it? She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Printed screenshot. The message. But this time, not the one from her phone. It was from his. He took it, confused, scanning the words, and froze. If you don't end this now, I will release the video. You know the one. The night she begged you to stay. The one your father kept. I have it, and it will ruin her. His hands trembled. Who sent this? He whispered. I don't know. Came to my inbox at dawn. No name, no number, just that. He swallowed hard. The memory hit him like a slap. The night before the divorce. The hotel. Her crying, begging him to fight for them. He hadn't known his father had recorded it, much less kept it. I didn't know, he said, breathless. Hygiene. I swear. I didn't. I believe you. He looked up, startled. I don't trust easily, Jaemin. But I believe you didn't know, which means someone else does. And they're using it. He folded the paper, his jaw tight. I'll make it stop. How? She asked. Whoever this is, they're not playing games. They want you scared. Or they want me humiliated. Or both. I'll talk to him. Your father, yes. You think he'll just admit it? No, he said darkly. But I know how to make him listen. She shook her head. Don't be reckless. This is about you, he said. That video, if it leaks. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were afraid. I know what it would do. It would paint me as pathetic, desperate. The woman crying while her husband walked away. It would follow me forever. The boys would grow up with it floating around the internet. He stared at her, his throat burning. I'll destroy it, he said. I'll find it and erase it, even if it means going back into that house. She stepped closer. I won't let you do that alone. He blinked. What? I want to be there, she said. I want to look him in the eye. I want him to see I'm not afraid of him anymore. No, Hygiene, it's not safe. I lived through worse, she said. And I won't let someone else fight my battle. Not this time. He saw it in her then, the fire. The same fire she'd carried the night she left with nothing but a suitcase and her unborn children. The same fire that raised them. He nodded slowly. All right, he said. We do this together. She held his gaze. And somewhere, across the city, behind mahogany walls and glass towers, a man sat in silence, watching footage on a flat screen, a drink in his hand. Neither of them spoke. Jaemin stood stiffly beside Hygiene, hands clenched at his sides, eyes fixed on the numbers lighting up above the doors. Hygiene, calm on the surface, could feel her pulse racing beneath her skin. The last time she'd entered this building, she had been 6 weeks pregnant, wearing an old coat and shoes soaked from the rain. She had stood in the same elevator, soaked and shaking, holding the last of her dignity in her hands as she begged for mercy. That night was now in someone else's possession. A recording, a tool. This time, she wasn't here to beg. The elevator doors opened. The marble hallway stretched out before them, pristine and cold, lined with expensive art and silence. It smelled like power, like fear, like memory. They walked side by side. When they reached the massive oak doors of the penthouse office, Jaemin paused. Then he reached forward, his knuckles rapping once, firmly. Enter. A voice called from inside. He pushed the door open. The office was exactly as Hygiene remembered. No warmth, just books lining every wall, leather furniture that had never known comfort, and a view of the city that made everything look small. At the center of it all sat Chairman Kong. He didn't stand. He didn't even look surprised. Didn't expect you to bring her, he said without looking at them. Brave. Hygiene stepped forward before Jaemin could respond. I'm not here for your approval, she said. I'm here for the recording. The chairman's eyes finally lifted to meet hers. He studied her for a moment, then leaned back in his chair with a small, humorless smile. You've aged well, he said. And you're exactly the same, she replied. Jaemin moved beside her. You recorded her without her knowledge. That's illegal. Chairman Kong waved a hand dismissively. Please, spare me the lectures. You signed away your morality the moment you chose this woman over your legacy. I chose my family, Jaemin said. You chose scandal. You chose weakness. He stood now, voice rising. Chose a woman who cried like a child while I told her to leave, and now she wants to pretend she's the wronged party. I was wronged, Hygiene said, voice calm but unwavering. And I stayed silent for years, but I won't let you use that night to shame me. Not anymore. Chairman Kong walked around the desk slowly, like a wolf circling prey. And what exactly do you plan to do? Threaten me, sue me, go public. You think anyone will believe you over me? I don't care who believes what, she said. I just want the video erased. Destroyed. He smirked. Not happening. Jaemin stepped forward. Then I'll go public. Chairman Kong laughed. With what a father turning against his own blood, a man leaving his mistress to raise children with a former maid, you'll be eaten alive by the press. Your career will be finished. I already resigned, Jaemin said. I walked away. I don't need your name. I don't want your empire. The chairman's face fell slightly, the mask slipping. You always were a disappointment, he said. And yet, Jaemin whispered, stepping closer, I'm finally proud of who I am. Chairman Kong turned to Hygiene again, his voice venomous. You're a parasite. You latched onto him. She slapped him. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the office. For a moment, no one moved. Jaemin stared at her, eyes wide. Chairman Kong touched his cheek, stunned. Then he laughed. A low, bitter laugh. There it is, he said. The temper, the audacity. You think I'm afraid of you? I don't care what you're afraid of, she said. But if you ever come near my children again, if you ever even think about using them, I'll release the tape, he threatened. Tonight. No, Jaemin said. You won't. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small USB stick. Chairman Kong narrowed his eyes. What is that? A recording, Jaemin said. Of this conversation. Of you threatening her. Of you admitting everything. You recorded me. I learned from the best, he replied coldly. This goes to the press if that video ever sees the light of day. The chairman stared at him, the weight of years of control slipping away, inch by inch. You'd ruin your own name. I already did, Jamin said. Now I'm cleaning it up. Silence stretched thick in the room. Finally, Chairman Kong returned to his desk and tapped a few keys on his laptop. He opened a folder, clicked on a file labeled with a date 5 years ago, and dragged it to the trash. Deleted, he said. That's not enough, Hygiene said. You have backups, cloud storage, your legal team. He rolled his eyes but typed again, opening multiple drives, wiping them clean one by one. When he was done, he looked up. It's gone. Every copy. She didn't thank him. He didn't expect her to. They turned to leave. At the door, the chairman spoke again. You're not welcome here anymore, Jamin. You're not my son. Jamin turned slowly. No, he said. I'm not, but I'm finally a father. And with that, they stepped into the hallway. As the elevator doors closed, Hygiene exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. Do you think he really erased it? She asked. Yes, Jamin said, because he's more afraid of exposure than of losing me. She leaned against the wall of the elevator, eyes closed. He watched her carefully. Are you okay? He asked. I don't know, she admitted, but I think I will be. They stood in silence, the hum of the elevator carrying them back to a world far from the man who once controlled their fate. But control was no longer in his hands. It was in theirs, and for the first time in years, they weren't afraid of what came next. Her legs were trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of having stood up to the man who once decided the course of her entire life. She felt cracked open, like something raw inside her had finally been exposed to air. She slowed on the sidewalk. Jamin noticed immediately. Are you all right? I just need a second. He led her to a bench under a tree, away from the rush of people. They sat side by side, the wind brushing over them, rustling the sleeves of their coats. She didn't speak at first, just stared down at her hands. You were incredible, he said quietly. Stronger than I've ever seen you. She let out a shaky laugh. I didn't feel strong. I felt like I was 5 seconds away from screaming. He smiled gently. Then you screamed silently, and it was louder than anything in that room. Her eyes filled with something she couldn't name, grief, maybe, or maybe just exhaustion. She turned toward him. Do you ever wonder what it would have been like if we had stayed together? He didn't answer right away. I think about it every day, he said finally. But I also know, if we hadn't broken, I never would have changed. I was a coward back then. I didn't know how to choose you. She looked at him, really looked at him. You're different now, she whispered. I hope so, but part of me hates that it took losing everything for you to find yourself. He nodded slowly. I hate it too. She turned away again. I don't know what this means for us. It doesn't have to mean anything, he said. I'm not asking for answers. I'm just here. She was quiet. Then, finally, she asked, Do you still love me? He looked at her, and in his eyes, there was no hesitation, no panic, just truth. Yes. She closed her eyes, her chest tightening with 100 emotions at once. I don't know if I can ever love you like I did before, she said. I don't expect you to, he said. That version of us is gone. But maybe if there's a new version waiting, I can earn it. Slowly, she opened her eyes and met his gaze. Slowly, she echoed. The air shifted. Before either of them could say more, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and froze, her face drained of color. Jamin leaned closer. What is it? She handed him the phone. It was a video, not the hotel video, but something newer. A camera had followed them, from the moment they exited the penthouse to the bench to this very conversation. The angle was high, distant, but clear. A voiceover spoke over the footage. Disgraced former CEO rekindles affair with former maid. mother of his secret illegitimate triplets. Scandal erupts in Kong Empire as family secrets spill into public. His blood ran cold. Who released this, he whispered. She took the phone back and scrolled to the profile that posted it. Anonymous source. 2 million views. Already, her heart pounded. The boys? They'll see it, he murmured. Or someone at school will. He stood up suddenly, fury rising in his chest. I'm calling my PR team. I'm releasing a statement. This isn't just scandal anymore. It's a violation. They followed us, secretly filmed us. She stood too. It's not just about protecting your name anymore. It's about protecting them. I know, he said, already dialing. We do this now, today. We don't let them shape this narrative. She grabbed his arm, stopping him. Wait, think. If we react in anger, we'll feed it. The media will spin it. We need to be calm, strategic. He stared at her, breathing hard. Then what do? We speak, she said. Together, on our terms. You mean an interview, she nodded. One platform, one time, one story, all the truth. No edits. He hesitated. Are you sure? No, she said. But I'm tired of being the woman people whisper about. I want our sons to hear this story from us, not from strangers on the internet. He nodded, slowly, his eyes full of admiration and pain. Then we do it together. She held his gaze. Together, the decision was made. They walked back down the street, side by side, not as a couple, not yet, but as two people who had finally decided to fight side by side, instead of from opposite sides of a door. And somewhere behind a glowing screen, someone watched them. A man in a dark office with rings on every finger and no soul in his eyes. Across the room, Jaemin sat in a separate chair. He watched her through the mirror. Her reflection was still, her back straight, her shoulders squared. But he knew that look. He had seen it 5 years ago, on the night she walked out of his life. It was the face of a woman holding herself together because falling apart was no longer an option. We go live in 15. Someone called from the control booth. Jaemin stood and walked over to her. She didn't look up. He crouched next to her instead, voice quiet. Last chance to back out. She turned to him slowly, eyes sharp. I don't run anymore. He nodded, swallowing hard. I'm proud of you. I'm not doing this for your pride, she said. I'm doing this for them. I know. She exhaled. Are you ready to tell the world who you really are? He looked at her, pain and conviction in his eyes. Only if I get to show them who you really are too. They were called to the set. It wasn't a flashy stage. No neon lights. Just a simple black backdrop, 2 chairs, and a host who understood this wasn't gossip. It was truth. The cameras rolled. Tonight, the host said, we bring you an exclusive story that's already rippling across the country. A story of betrayal, silence, and unexpected redemption. For the first time ever, CEO Kang Jaemin and his former wife, Han Hae-jin, speak out together. The camera turned to them. Hae-jin's breath caught, but Jaemin reached across the small space between their chairs and gently took her hand. Not forcefully, not for the cameras. Just enough to remind her they weren't alone this time. The host began with carefully prepared questions, but soon the script fell away. What came next was raw, unfiltered. I didn't want this story to be told through scandal, Hae-jin said, her voice calm but shaking slightly. Because it isn't a scandal. It's a life. My life. Our children's lives. When we divorced, Jaemin added, I thought I was protecting my future, but all I did was destroy hers. And I didn't realize that until it was too late. Did you know she was pregnant? The host asked. Jaemin's jaw clenched. No, I found out on live television. Hae-jin looked down. I tried to tell him, she said softly, but by then, the silence was already louder than my voice. The host turned gently. And why speak now? Because our sons deserve better than headlines, she replied. They deserve to know that the world didn't break us, that we stood up and told the truth. There was a pause. Then the host said, there's been talk about proof, a DNA test. Do you care to address that Jaemin reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded paper? The test was done last week. Official. Certified. He handed it to the host, who read it silently, then nodded. All 3 boys. Confirmed. The audience watching from home wouldn't hear cheers. There was no applause. Just silence. Wait. Realization. Tears. Jaemin turned to the camera. To any father watching this who's run from his family, from his responsibility, I promise you, the guilt will follow you for the rest of your life. You can either face it or you can drown in it. Hygiene turned too. To any mother raising children alone, I see you. I know what it's like to fall asleep on the floor beside the crib because you're too tired to walk to bed. To wonder if your child will blame you someday for the absence of someone who should have stayed. A long silence passed. Then the host leaned forward. And what now, will you be a family again? They didn't answer immediately. Jaemin looked at her. She didn't look back. Instead, she looked at the floor, then at her hands, then finally up, eyes steady. We already are a family, she said. It just doesn't look the way the world expects it to. The broadcast ended not with a dramatic revelation, but with a moment of truth so sharp, it didn't need a twist. After the cameras cut, the crew stood in stunned quiet. No one moved. Hygiene rose first, her body trembling, but her spine unbent. Jaemin stood beside her. Outside the studio, reporters were already waiting. Flashes, voices, microphones, but they didn't flinch. They stepped through it together, like walking through a storm and realizing, at some point, the thunder doesn't sound so loud anymore when someone's holding your hand. Later that night, back at the apartment, the boys were still awake. Sitting cross-legged in front of the television, eyes wide. They had watched the whole thing. Hygiene crouched beside them. Minjun leaned in. That was you on TV? She nodded. It was. Jiho tilted his head. You were crying. I was telling the truth. Duyun crawled into her lap. Was that our dad? She kissed the top of his head. Yes, she whispered. That's your dad. Jaemin stood in the doorway, and when Minjun walked toward him, arms outstretched, he dropped to his knees and pulled his son into his chest, holding him like the world was finally right side up again. They didn't need perfect answers. They didn't need permission. They just needed to begin. Hygiene stood in the hallway just outside the boys' room, the door slightly ajar. She watched them sleep. 3 small bodies curled in their beds, tangled in blankets, cheeks flushed from the warmth. They looked peaceful, and for the first time in years, she felt a fragile thread of peace beginning to weave inside her too. Behind her, Jaemin stood leaning against the wall. He hadn't said much since the interview, and neither had she. It wasn't that there was nothing to say, it was that too much had been said. Words were heavy now, weighted with consequence. She turned to face him. You should go, she said gently. He didn't move. I know, but he didn't leave either. She crossed her arms loosely. You've done everything right lately, you know? The boys are. They're starting to trust you. They talk about you when you're not around. His eyes lit up, just barely. They do, she nodded. Minjun says you laugh at his jokes. Jiho says you listen when he talks about space. And Duyun, her voice caught. Duyun asks if you're coming back every night before bed. Jaemin lowered his gaze. That's all I want, just to be part of them, even if it's just as a shadow in the background. You're more than a shadow now, she whispered. But that doesn't mean I know where we're going, or how this ends. He looked up. I'm not thinking about endings, just tomorrow. She exhaled and leaned against the opposite wall. I used to dream about you coming back. I used to imagine what I'd say, and it was never like this. Sometimes I yelled at you in my sleep. Sometimes I forgave you too easily. Sometimes I pretended we never met. He smiled faintly. Did I ever say the right thing in those dreams? No, she said, smiling a little. You never spoke. They stood in silence, the hum of the city below their only soundtrack. Then Jaemin straightened. I want to tell them. She blinked. Tell them what? That I'm their father. The real story. Not the one about the traveler or the man who just happens to visit. Her breath hitched. "They're not ready," she said. "I think they are," he replied softly. "And I think we're holding on to a lie that's starting to hurt more than protect." She shook her head slowly. "You don't understand how children carry things. Even the truth. They don't always know where to put it. Sometimes they hold it in their chest until it starts to bruise. I want to be the one who helps them carry it," he said. "I don't want them to hear it from someone else, or from a headline, or from a cruel classmate who repeats something they heard at home." Her jaw tightened. He stepped closer, careful not to close the space too quickly. "I'll say it gently, thoughtfully. I'll answer every question. I'll wait if they get angry. I'll stay even if they push me away." She looked at him long and hard. "And what if they cry? Then I'll hold them. What if they don't speak to you? Then I'll wait in silence." Her voice cracked. "What if they say they hate you?" He hesitated. Then I'll love them harder." She pressed her lips together, trying to swallow the lump rising in her throat. "I don't know how to prepare them for this," she whispered. "I don't know how to protect them from a truth I've kept hidden for so long." "You don't have to protect them alone anymore." That sentence settled between them like a warm breeze against winter skin. A door creaked. They both turned. Duyun stood in the hallway, hair a mess, eyes half open, still clinging to the blue paper crane. "Mommy," he said groggily. Hygiene knelt. "What's wrong, baby?" "I had a dream." She touched his face. "What kind of dream?" He looked past her. "At Jaemin." "You were there," he said, "and you called me your son." Hygiene froze. Jaemin crouched beside her, gently. "Duyun," he said softly. "Can I tell you something?" The boy nodded. "I didn't just dream that," Jaemin said. "You really are my son." The boy blinked. "Really? Yes," he said, voice shaking. "You and Minjun and Jiho. All three of you. I'm your dad." Duyun looked at his mother. She didn't speak. She just nodded, eyes full of tears. And then, with the kind of innocence that breaks grown men, Duyun stepped forward and wrapped his arms around Jaemin's neck. "I knew it," he whispered. Jaemin held him tight, burying his face in the boy's shoulder. "I'm sorry I wasn't there before," he said, barely audible. "But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." The boy nodded sleepily, still clinging to him. Hygiene turned away, wiping at her eyes. Behind her, the hallway light flickered once. And in that small, ordinary space, beneath the weight of all they had lost and all they might still gain, a father was finally born. Not in blood, but in presence, in truth, in holding on when it mattered most. The boys now called him Appa. Not always, not consistently, but enough for it to matter. Minjun said it first, loud and proud. When Jaemin showed up to his soccer game holding a bag of sliced oranges and cheering like he'd trained for years. Jiho said it in a quiet whisper when Jaemin stayed after school to help him build a model of the solar system. Duyun said it like a question the first time, looking up at him from the dinner table, testing the word on his tongue. Appa. Jaemin didn't breathe. "Yes," he said, "always." The days were small and soft and full of firsts. First bedtime story, first pancake morning, first scraped knee soothed with a father's kiss. Hygiene watched from a quiet place inside herself, sometimes smiling, sometimes afraid. The way the boys clung to him now, as if they'd always known he belonged, it warmed her. But it scared her too, because what if he left again? What if he stayed long enough for them to need him more, and then vanished? She tried not to think like that. But late at night, when the house was quiet, the fear would creep back in like a draft under a locked door. One evening, it rained. Not heavy, but constant. A soft tapping against the windows like the city humming a lullaby. The boys had fallen asleep early, worn out from a long day at the park. Jaemin had read them all the same story 3 times because they refused to agree on which book to pick. Hygiene stood in the kitchen drying mugs from tea. Her movements were slow, careful. Jaemin entered quietly, holding one of Duyun's socks in his hand. "He lost this in the hallway," he said with a tired smile. "I swear, he's shedding clothes wherever he goes." She took the sock from him, brushing his fingers by accident. Neither pulled away. "You're good with them," she said. "I love them," he replied. She nodded, swallowing hard. He leaned against the counter, watching her. "You're quiet tonight." "I'm thinking about," she hesitated. Then, "how fast everything is changing." "Too fast. Maybe," she admitted. "Or maybe I'm just afraid to trust it." He stepped closer. "You can trust me." "Can I?" she asked softly, turning to face him. "Because every time I start to believe that, something inside me panics. Like I'm waiting for the moment it all disappears again." He nodded slowly. "I don't blame you." She looked at him, eyes glassy. "You say all the right things now. You show up. You try. And part of me wants to fall into that. But I also remember what it felt like to be left behind. Pregnant. Alone. I remember the silence more than anything." He looked away, shame flickering across his face. "I'll never be able to undo that," he whispered. "But if I could trade places with that version of me, I would. In a second." "You can't," she said. "And I can't forget it." Pause. "Then what do I do?" he asked, desperate. "Tell me what to do, Hygiene. I'll do anything." She blinked slowly. "Stay." "I am staying." "No," she said. "Not just for them. For me. Stay through the hard conversations. Through the silence. Through the parts where I'm distant or angry or scared. Stay even when it doesn't feel like you're wanted." "I will," he said, voice trembling. "I will." She looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time saw the man not as the one who broke her, but as the one trying to rebuild something he could never fully fix. Then she whispered, "Then don't just say it. Prove it." He stepped closer, his hand gently resting on the edge of the counter between them. "I'll be here tomorrow," he said, "and the day after, and after that." She nodded once. Just then, Jiho's voice called out from the bedroom, sleepy and confused. Appa Jamin froze for only a second, then turned toward the hallway. "I'll go," he said gently, and he did, disappearing into the dim hallway, his shadow flickering as he entered the boys' room. Hygiene stood alone in the kitchen, heart full and afraid at once. She didn't love him yet, not again, but maybe, just maybe, she didn't need to hate him anymore. Inside, the apartment was filled with soft sounds. Minjun humming while brushing his teeth, Jiho quietly flipping through his picture encyclopedia, and Duyun asking Jae-min for help tying his shoelaces. Felt like a home, not perfect, not without scars, but whole in a way she had stopped hoping for. She turned as Jae-min entered the living room. His sleeves were rolled up, his collar slightly askew. He looked tired, but the good kind. The kind that came from staying up late, helping with homework, and waking up early to make lunches. "They're ready," he said with a soft smile. "All dressed. All arguing about which superhero is the strongest." She smirked. "Let me guess. Minjun says Iron Man." He nodded. "Of course. Jiho says Batman because he's logical. And Duyun can't decide." She chuckled quietly, sipping her tea. "They're so different. They're perfect," he murmured. There was a pause, gentle but full of something neither of them wanted to disrupt too soon. Then Hygiene said quietly, "You've been here every day. I told you I would be." She looked at him, hesitant. "And how long do you plan to keep showing up?" His voice didn't waver. "As long as it takes." A knock at the door. They both turned. Hygiene looked puzzled. "Are you expecting someone?" "No," he said, already moving toward the door. "Are you?" She shook her head. He opened it. Standing there was a woman. Elegant. Cold. Familiar. Sujin. She wore a cream coat that looked more like armor than clothing, and her eyes flicked past Jae-min as if he were a minor detail. Her gaze landed directly on Hygiene. "I assume I'm not early," she said. Jae-min stepped into the doorway, blocking her from entering. "Why are you here?" She raised an eyebrow. "I think we both know why." Hygiene set her mug down slowly and walked over. Her voice was calm. "I didn't expect to see you again." "You made quite the show," Sujin said coolly. "On live television. With all your truths." "I wasn't performing," Hygiene replied. I was telling the truth. Truth can be edited, Sujin said. Cut to fit the story you want. Jaemin spoke up, voice low. Sujin, leave. But she didn't move. Instead, she reached into her purse and pulled out a folded envelope. She held it out to Hygiene. What is this? Hygiene asked, not taking it. Proof, Sujin said. Of what comes next? Hygiene glanced at Jaemin, then slowly took the envelope and opened it. Her eyes scanned the document. Then her hands began to shake. She looked up, breathless. This is custody papers. Jaemin's head snapped toward Sujin. What the hell are you doing? She met his eyes. He still bears your name, Jaemin, and your father is watching everything. You think you can just walk away from the Kong legacy and have a normal life? I don't care about the Kong name, he growled. Then you're more naive than I thought, she said sharply. Do you think this ends with the interview with warm hugs and bedtime stories? No. There's a price for breaking out of that world. And your father's already prepared the terms. Hygiene looked at the papers again, her voice hollow. He's suing for custody of the boys, claiming the children are heirs to the Kong family, Sujin said. That you manipulated Jaemin. That your silence all these years was part of a calculated plan. Jaemin stepped forward, eyes blazing. You helped him do this. I warned you, she snapped. You humiliated me. You abandoned me. You chose a woman who walked away from you in rags. Now you get to face the consequences. Get out, Hygiene said, voice trembling with rage. Before I do something I regret. Sujin looked at her one last time. You should be careful, Hygiene. Not every story ends in redemption. She turned and walked away without another word. The door clicked shut. Hygiene stood frozen. Jaemin reached for her. I'll fight this. I'll protect them. She didn't move. They want to take them, she whispered. They want to take my sons. They won't, he said. I swear to you they won't. Tears welled in her eyes, but she held them back. Do you understand what this means? They'll dig through everything. Every mistake. Every job I worked. Every time I fell behind on rent. They'll turn me into a villain. They'll try, he said, but they'll have to go through me first. She looked up at him, desperate. What if we lose? He cupped her face gently, voice breaking. Then I'll lose with you. I won't let them take you on alone. And for the first time in her life, she believed it. Even in the face of the storm, she believed it. But the fear was there, looming, because some wars don't happen in silence. They happen in courtrooms. Hygiene had gone to bed late, emotionally wrecked. But even as she lay under the covers, her eyes stayed wide open, staring at the ceiling. She had thought the worst was over, that truth had given them peace. But peace, it seemed, was a luxury reserved for the powerful. And now, the powerful wanted her children. At dawn, Jaemin finally stood. He poured himself a glass of water, but didn't drink it. Instead, he walked quietly into the boys' room, careful not to wake them. There they were, 3 small bodies curled into sleep, arms flung over stuffed animals, breath slow and safe. His throat tightened. He crouched next to Minjun and gently touched his hair. I won't let anyone take you, he whispered. Not now. Not ever. Behind him, the door creaked. Hygiene leaned against the frame, a blanket draped over her shoulders. I thought you were asleep, he said softly, not turning. She didn't answer at first. Then, in a quiet voice, I keep thinking, what if I hadn't gone on that show? What if I had just stayed quiet? He turned to her sharply. Don't say that. She met his eyes. This is my fault. No, he stood, walked toward her, voice shaking. This is his fault. Your silence didn't protect you before, and it wouldn't have protected you now. The only person responsible for this war is the man who declared it. Her jaw clenched. They'll try to destroy me. He stepped closer, gently placing his hands on her shoulders. Then we make it impossible. How? We don't hide, he said. We go to the media again. We expose what he's doing. We show them the documents, the manipulation, the threats. We don't let him control the narrative. She looked down. He has more money, more influence. Then we fight with what he doesn't have, Jaemin whispered. The truth. And them. Her eyes welled again. I can't lose them. You won't, he said, because I'm going to stand next to you in that courtroom. I'm going to testify. I'm going to tell them everything. About the night you begged me to stay. About the 5 years you raised them alone. About what it means to be a mother who never gave up. Her lips trembled. They'll try to paint me as unstable, vindictive. Then I'll show them the woman who sat on the floor of a studio and told the truth with nothing but her name and her voice. Silence. Then you'd really stand on the record against your own father. I already did, he said. The day I chose you. Her breath caught in her chest. She nodded, slowly. Okay, she whispered. Then we fight. The next few days passed like a blur of paperwork, meetings with lawyers, and hushed phone calls. They hired a small legal team, not the most powerful but honest and willing to go against giants. The lead attorney, a woman in her 50s named Ms. Lee, listened to every detail with quiet intensity. Your biggest strength is the truth, she said, but the other side will be ruthless. They'll bring up everything, your financial history, your absence from the children's lives, Mr. Kong. Are you prepared for that? I deserve it, Jaemin said. Let them say whatever they want about me, just not about her. Hyejin looked at him, something shifting again inside her. One evening, while the boys were asleep and the legal team had gone home, they sat on the floor with stacks of old photos scattered between them. Hyejin pulled out a faded picture of her with the boys on their 3rd birthday. Homemade cake, party hats made of folded paper, her smile tired but radiant. They don't remember this day, she said. They don't have to, Jaemin replied. Because you do. You carried all of it. And now you don't have to carry it alone. She turned the photo over. On the back, she'd written, "We made it another year." Somehow, Jaemin stared at the words for a long time. Then, with his voice almost broken, he said, "This time we'll do more than make it. We'll win." The next morning, the summons arrived. The hearing was set. 1 week. 7 days to prepare for the most important fight of their lives. As they stood together in the living room, watching the boys eat breakfast and argue about which cereal was the best, the fear in Hyejin's chest didn't disappear. But it didn't own her anymore. Because when Minjun looked up and grinned at Jaemin with his milk-covered chin, and when Doyoon pulled his chair closer to sit beside his father without saying a word, and when Jiho slipped his hand into Hyejin's without even looking away from his book, she knew something unshakable had already been built. Something that no amount of money or power could dismantle. Family, not by blood alone, but by staying, by showing up, by choosing each other every day. And now they were ready to defend it. It was colder than Hyejin expected. Not in temperature, but in tone. Sterile, unforgiving. She sat beside Jaemin at the long table, her fingers clasped tightly in her lap, a single bead of sweat trickling down the back of her neck despite the chill in the air. On the other side of the courtroom, seated with unnerving calm, was Chairman Kong, Jaemin's father, towering in his presence even while seated, his expression unreadable. Beside him, Sujin looked perfectly composed, legs crossed, lips painted in a crimson smirk. A hired team of 3 elite attorneys flanked them, flipping through neatly tabbed files, confident. The judge entered, and everyone stood. As they sat back down, Hyejin's stomach twisted. Jaemin leaned over, whispering just loud enough. "We've got this." She nodded, but she couldn't speak. Not yet. The proceedings began. The opposing lawyer stood, voice smooth and theatrical. "Your Honor, this case is not about revenge. It is about protection. The Kong family seeks to ensure the well-being and future of 3 minor children who, until recently, were unknown to their legal bloodline. The mother, Miss Han Hyejin, withheld this information and raised the children in, shall we say, less than ideal circumstances." Hyejin flinched. Ms. Lee stood immediately. "Objection. The insinuation of neglect has no basis and is inflammatory." "Sustained," the judge said. The lawyer didn't stop. "We will provide evidence that Miss Han's income was inconsistent, that she moved residences more than 6 times, that she was, at one point, behind on rent and lacked health insurance for the children. Because she was doing it alone, Jaemin muttered under his breath. The lawyer turned, as if hearing him, then looked directly at Hae-jin. Miss Han, is it true you never attempted to reach out to Mr. Kong regarding the children until a public broadcast aired your story? Hae-jin hesitated, then stood slowly. I tried, she said, her voice cracking slightly. Many times. I left voicemails, emails. I even sent a letter to his family home. But I was blocked, ignored. I had no power, no money. I was pregnant, and I was discarded. The lawyer smiled faintly. But you didn't go to the media until years later. Why? Because I was trying to protect my sons, she replied. Not from their father, but from a world that never wanted to claim them. The courtroom grew quiet. Then Jaemin stood. Your Honor, I'd like to speak. Mr. Kong, the judge said, raising an eyebrow. You'll have your turn. Jaemin didn't sit. I need to say this now. The judge considered him, then nodded once. Jaemin turned to the courtroom. His voice was steady, but his eyes brimmed with fire. For 5 years I was absent, not because she kept me from my children, but because I didn't want to face who I had become. I was weak. I let someone else, my father, dictate the terms of my life. I abandoned the woman I loved and the family we created together. He looked directly at Chairman Kong. You taught me that love was a transaction, that power was worth more than people, that legacy was built through control. But you were wrong. He turned back to the judge. My sons don't need protection from their mother. They need protection from a man who sees them as pawns. They don't need a mansion or a title. They need the woman who read to them every night when she had no strength left. The woman who worked 2 jobs just to buy them school shoes. The woman who made paper crowns from cereal boxes because they couldn't afford real ones. Hae-jin felt her throat tighten. Her hand moved toward him under the table. She gripped his pinky finger. He didn't look at her, but his pinky wrapped around hers tightly. Soo-jin stood suddenly. So what is this? Then a confession, a soap opera. You threw away our engagement, your inheritance, your entire life, for what? Jaemin's gaze didn't falter. For my life, the one I chose, the one I nearly lost because I was too afraid to fight for it. Soo-jin's face darkened. You will regret this. I already regretted the day I let Hae-jin walk out of that hospital carrying 3 lives and no support. The judge cleared her throat. Order. Silence returned. The next hour was filled with testimonies. Hae-jin recounted the birth alone, the fever scare with Ji-ho, the time she almost pawned her wedding ring to buy food. Each word dug deep, but each word was honest. Ms. Lee presented photos, school reports, teacher statements. The boys were thriving, happy, safe. Then came the final moment. Miss Han, the judge said, if the court rules in favor of Chairman Kong, he will be granted partial custody. Your children may spend months under his care. Are you prepared for that? Hae-jin's heart thundered in her chest. She stood. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. No, Your Honor, she said. I'm not prepared, because no mother should ever have to prepare to lose her children to a man who has never met them, who doesn't know the name of their favorite bedtime story, who never stayed up at 3 a.m. when Minjun had nightmares or rubbed Duyun's back during his coughs, who didn't even know Ji-ho existed until last month. She stepped forward slightly. I'm not the perfect mother, but I have loved them every second of their lives. And love isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just showing up, every day, no matter what. Silence. The judge wrote something. A beat passed. Then 2. Then, this court will take a recess and reconvene tomorrow for the final ruling. The gavel came down. Jaemin reached for her hand as they left the courtroom. She clung to him like he was the only thing holding her to the earth. Outside, reporters swarmed. Flashes, questions, a microphone shoved into her face. Do you think you'll win? She looked down at the floor, then at Jaemin, then behind her, where she imagined the boys, waiting for them at home. Behind her, Jaemin appeared in the doorway, straightening his tie. They'll be watching again, he said softly. I know. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to. I do, she whispered. He stepped closer, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Whatever happens today, I'm proud of you. Her throat tightened. I'm scared. So am I. They stood together for a moment, silence stretching like a fragile thread. Then she reached for his hand. Let's go. The courtroom was filled to capacity. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but the whispers, the tension, the anticipation. It felt like the whole world was watching anyway. The judge entered. The room rose, then sat. A moment passed. Papers shuffled. The gavel rested beside her hand, unused. And then the judge spoke. I have reviewed the testimonies, the evidence, and the legal claims submitted by both parties. This is not a case to be decided lightly, and it is not without complexity. Hygiene gripped the edge of the table, her nails digging into the wood. But the law must prioritize the best interest of the children above all else. And in this case, despite the significant wealth and influence of the Kong family, I find no compelling reason to disrupt the primary custodial bond these children have with their mother, Han Hygiene. A single breath escaped her lips. The judge continued. Mr. Kong Jae-min has demonstrated a credible intention to be part of his children's lives and has begun to rebuild trust with both them and the mother. I will grant joint legal guardianship between Mr. Kong and Miss Han. However, full physical custody shall remain with the mother. A muffled gasp rippled through the room. Hygiene stared forward, frozen. And as for Chairman Kong, the judge said, turning her gaze firm, I find no basis to justify his petition for guardianship, nor any indication of sincere involvement in the children's lives prior to these proceedings. His request is denied. Chairman Kong didn't move. He sat still like stone. Su-jin, beside him, inhaled sharply, then looked away, jaw clenched. The judge concluded, court is adjourned. The gavel struck. Cheers didn't erupt. Applause wasn't allowed. But inside Hygiene's chest, something bloomed. Like spring had returned to a place that had been winter for too long. Jae-min turned to her slowly. She was already crying, silent tears streaking down her cheeks. He reached out and took her face in his hands, pressing his forehead to hers. We won, he whispered. No, she said, voice shaking. They did. Outside, the courthouse steps were swarmed with reporters. But the crowd parted as Hygiene appeared, hand in hand with Jae-min, not because they pushed, but because there was something about the way she walked, unapologetically strong, fierce in her gentleness, that made people pause. Microphones were raised. Miss Han, do you have anything to say to the public? She stopped, looked directly into the cameras. I didn't fight this battle to hurt anyone. I fought because every mother has the right to protect her children. I'm not wealthy. I'm not powerful. But I have loved my sons every second of their lives, and that will always be enough. She turned to go, but Jae-min paused. And I, he said, stepping forward, have made mistakes I can never undo. But today I begin a life of making it right. For my sons, for the woman who never gave up, for the family I almost lost. They walked away together side by side, no longer haunted, no longer ashamed. That evening, the apartment was filled with laughter. Min-jun wore a paper crown again. Ji-ho was dancing with a spatula. Do-yoon was chasing bubbles in his pajamas. Jae-min sat on the floor, a bowl of rice in his lap, watching them with a grin so wide it made his cheeks ache. Hygiene stepped into the room holding a tray of soup. She paused for a moment at the door, just watching, just breathing it in. He looked up. Our king, he said, nodding toward Min-jun. Our scientist, she replied, glancing at Ji-ho. Our explorer, he added with a laugh, as Do-yoon jumped on the couch and declared he had discovered a new planet called Sofaland. And us, she asked softly. He set his bowl down and walked to her. We're the ones who didn't give up. She looked into his eyes, no longer searching for lies, only truth. I'm still scared, she admitted. Me too, he said. She reached out and took his hand. Then let's be scared together. Outside, the city moved on. But inside, they were finally still. Not perfect, but whole. And as night fell, and the boys fell asleep to the sound of stories and old lullabies, Hygiene knew the story they were writing now was the only one that mattered. A story not of betrayal, but of redemption, of love rediscovered, of a home rebuilt from broken pieces. And in that quiet, she whispered to